We tried helping our elderly neighbor by bringing her groceries each week. One day, we missed a visit because my wife was in the ER. The next morning, there was a huge sign in her yard that read, "Unreliable neighbors shouldn't have children." I thought she was just upset. But then CPS showed up. Someone had reported that we left our toddler home alone for 12 hours. It was proven false. But then our doorbell camera caught her sliding a recorder through our mail slot, with a note attached that said, "I'll gather enough to make it real soon." We moved to Rock Hill, South Carolina, because we wanted quiet. My wife Jenna and I were tired of renting, tired of city noise, and when we found a fixer-upper on a sleepy street just outside town, we thought we struck gold. It had a big backyard, good schools nearby, and neighbors who waved at you when you drove by. It felt safe. It felt like home. 3 houses down from us was Beverly Clark. Old, retired, alone. I'd guess she was around 80, give or take. Always wore sweaters even when it was hot. Hair pinned back tight. Her lawn was always perfect, no weeds, no mess. You could tell she had nothing else to do, and she kept busy with it. She didn't speak much to anyone until I helped her carry a heavy bag of potting soil to her porch one afternoon. That was when it started. She opened up a bit. Said her husband died years ago. No kids, no family close by. She said it was nice to have decent people on the street again. I didn't think much of it then, but now I wonder what she meant by that. After that, we started helping her. Nothing big, just groceries once a week, mostly. She didn't drive anymore, and she liked to get specific things that the local store didn't deliver. Jenna and I would bring her a few bags each Saturday morning. She'd smile, offer us tea, sometimes give our daughter Sophie a piece of candy or a sticker book. I honestly thought we were doing a good thing. Then one Saturday, everything changed. It was early, around 6 a.m., when Jenna woke me up groaning in pain. She was sweating, curled up in bed. She couldn't stand without crying out. I called an ambulance. I bundled up Sophie and rode along. Turned out her appendix had ruptured. It was serious. She went into surgery that afternoon. We were in the hospital for nearly 18 hours. Sophie was with me the whole time, either in the waiting room or sitting beside Jenna in her recovery bed. It never even crossed my mind that we'd missed our weekly visit to Beverly. We got home the next morning. Jenna was exhausted, and I was half asleep when I walked outside to grab the paper. That's when I saw it. In Beverly's yard, facing the street, was a big white plywood sign. Looked like it was painted in a rush. The letters were jagged, uneven, black paint running in streaks. "Unreliable neighbors shouldn't have children." I stood there stunned. My first reaction was confusion. Then anger. Then something deeper. Like my gut knew this wasn't just about groceries. I walked over, knocked on her door. No answer. I called out, told her Jenna had emergency surgery, that we weren't ignoring her. Still nothing. I thought maybe she was embarrassed. Maybe she'd take the sign down once she cooled off. But it stayed. 3 days it sat there. Then CPS showed up. It was a Tuesday afternoon. 2 people in plain clothes. Badges. Serious faces. Jenna answered the door, and I heard one of them ask if we were the Millers. They said there was a report. Someone claimed our daughter had been left alone for over 12 hours. Jenna froze. I stepped in, showed them hospital papers, time-stamped intake forms. They asked questions. Wanted to see Sophie's room. Wanted to know where she slept that night. We explained everything. They checked our story. Called the hospital. Before they left, one of them said quietly, "It matches. This'll be marked unfounded. But I have to be honest, whoever reported this gave a lot of detail. Someone's watching." Jenna broke down after they left. She sobbed into my chest, kept saying, "Why would someone do this?" I didn't have to guess. I already knew. Next morning, I walked down to Beverly's house again. This time I didn't knock. I stood on her lawn and said loud enough for her to hear, "You nearly got CPS to take our kid. What is wrong with you?" Her curtain moved. A few seconds later, she came to the door. "You should be more careful," she said. "Children need stable homes. Not chaos." I was shaking. I wanted to scream at her. But I didn't. I turned and walked home. That night, we found the recorder. I was on a Zoom call when the doorbell rang. Jenna went to check but didn't see anyone. She looked down and saw it. A small digital recorder on the welcome mat. Duct taped to it was a note. "I'll gather enough to make it real soon." We were stunned. I checked our doorbell cam. Clear as day, Beverly, walking up, looking around, sliding it through the mail slot. I turned on the recorder. It was hours of sound. Some of it was us yelling, Me cheering during a football game, Jenna scolding Sophie for throwing her food. Other parts were just chatter. Background noise. Sophie crying during a tantrum. Jenna talking to her sister about being tired. Things people say in their own homes. She'd been listening to us. From outside. Maybe for weeks. Maybe longer. I took the recorder and drove straight to the police station. They filed the report. Said it wasn't, technically, illegal, since she was recording from outside and not inside the home. They said unless she broke in or threatened us directly, there wasn't much they could do. I was furious. She tried to get our daughter taken away. She was spying on us. And the system was telling us to document everything, and wait for more? That's when I decided I wasn't going to wait. I was going to end this. And I was going to do it my way. I stopped sleeping well. Every creak in the house made me sit up. I kept checking the baby monitor. I installed cameras at every door and window. I even put one behind the blinds in the living room, facing outward. I was done playing nice. I started watching her. If Beverly could record us, I'd do the same. I spent a full day adjusting the angle of my cameras. I watched hours of footage, her walking back and forth in her yard, staring toward our windows. Sometimes she sat on her porch with binoculars. Like she was birdwatching, but it was always pointed at our house. Then I noticed something else. Every Tuesday morning, a red pickup truck pulled up in front of her house. A man got out. Looked around. Went inside. Stayed about 20 minutes. Then drove off. Same truck, same time, every week. I got curious. I copied the plates and asked a friend, someone I knew from college who worked in DMV systems in another state. He owed me a favor. When he called back, he said, "Brian, you need to be careful. The truck was registered to a man named Ronald Hargrove. Convicted felon. Served time for wiretapping and stalking. Former private investigator. Lost his license years ago." That's when it clicked. She wasn't just doing this alone. She hired someone. Paid this guy to help dig into us. I dug more. Looked up Ronald's past. He'd been sued for false claims, defamation. Even tried to frame someone once in a custody case. Same pattern, audio recordings, altered clips, manipulating people. Jenna didn't want me to go further. She was scared. "Just let it go, Brian," she said. "What if she makes something worse up?" But I couldn't let it go. I couldn't wait for her to decide our lives were over. So I did something I'm not proud of. I went into her garbage. Tuesday night, after she rolled her can to the curb, I waited. At midnight, I pulled on gloves and walked down. I opened the lid and started digging. And I found gold. A spiral notebook, torn pages. Notes. All in her handwriting. Things like, "Child left alone? Heard crying, confirm with audio. Trash pickup missed, unsanitary? Mother screams often. Record more." She was building a case. But then I found something else. A receipt from a pawn shop 2 towns over. For the recorder she dropped off. And written next to it in red pen. "Last 2 months backed up, ask Ron to clean audio." I took pictures of everything. Next day, I called in a favor from an old buddy who's a lawyer. Not criminal, family law, but he pointed me to someone who did civil harassment cases. I brought her everything. The recorder. The doorbell footage. The trash photos. She looked at me and said, "You have enough to put her on a restraining order. Maybe even sue her." I was ready. But then something happened that nearly made us give up. Sophie came home from daycare with a bruise on her arm. Not a big one, but clear. One of the teachers noticed and asked where she got it. Sophie told her. "The lady in the garden grabbed me." We froze. I checked the cameras. That day, Jenna had walked Sophie to the corner, let her ride her scooter while she gardened. Sophie must have wandered a little close to Beverly's yard. Sure enough, there it was. A clip. Sophie bending over to pick a flower. Beverly grabbing her wrist and yanking her away. We called the cops. Again. They watched the footage. Said it was concerning, but didn't show injury. Said they'd speak with her. That was the final straw for Jenna. She packed bags. Took Sophie to her sister's for the weekend. She said she couldn't stay in the house anymore. I stayed. And I made a plan. After Jenna left with Sophie, I sat in that empty house, looking out the window at Beverly's place. Her porch light flicked on at exactly 6:30 p.m., like it always did. Her silhouette showed up in the front window. She moved slow, but always with purpose. Like a snake just waiting to strike. I poured a cup of coffee, sat at my laptop, and started digging harder. The private investigator she used, Ronald Hargrove, had been in and out of lawsuits for years. But something new came up in one of the court databases. A sealed deposition tied to a wrongful eviction case in Gastonia. And there it was again, Beverly Clark listed as a character witness. That raised my blood pressure. So I drove to Gastonia. Took half a day off work. Went to the courthouse and pulled what I could. The case was about a young couple who were evicted after Beverly testified they were dangerous and left their baby unattended for hours. Sound familiar? They lost. The landlord used her testimony as the final straw to kick them out. That was 2 years ago. Different town, different couple. Same story. When I looked up their names, Luis and Maria Santos, I found a phone number for Luis on LinkedIn. I didn't even know what I'd say. But when he answered, I just said, "Did an older woman named Beverly ruin your life?" There was silence. Then a long sigh. "I thought we were the only ones." They told me everything. Same pattern. Beverly showed up like a helpful neighbor. Groceries, casual talks. Then she started asking questions. Pressing them. Eventually accusing them of being unfit parents. She showed up at their landlord's office with evidence from a recorder and a notebook. Louise said she even called in a tip to immigration to scare them. That's when I knew. She didn't just snap because we missed the grocery run. She had done this before. Probably more than once. She thrived on it. She didn't want help. She wanted control. And if she didn't get it, she'd destroy you. I told Luis I had evidence. That I was going to take her down. He offered to testify if I needed it. Said he still had emails from her with threats, thinly disguised as concerns. That night, I went back home and started writing it all out. A timeline. A list of files. Photos. Videos. Notes. I was going to package everything into one tight folder for court. But something told me that wasn't enough. She needed to feel what it was like to be exposed. So I called in one more favor, from my cousin Matt. He ran a local podcast. Mostly true crime, sometimes local drama. He'd always joked that he wanted a deep dive on a real psycho from the suburbs. I gave him everything. He agreed to do it under a fake name, just in case. 2 weeks later, his episode dropped. The neighbor who watched too closely. He changed names. Blurred faces. But the story was ours. Ours, and the Santos families. And 2 others he found after posting teasers on Reddit. All had eerily similar stories. Elderly neighbor, kindness turned obsessive, false reports, CPS calls, sabotage. Within 24 hours, the podcast was trending on local Facebook pages. People started speculating. Some even guessed it was Beverly. Pictures of her house showed up. So did our street. Then something unexpected happened. Someone from her church came to our door. A middle-aged woman with tired eyes. She asked if I was Brian Miller. I nodded. She looked down, embarrassed, and said, "I think Beverly did this to my niece too. She used to live 2 streets over. Left town after a breakdown." I didn't believe her at the time. But now, that was it. The spark. I knew I had to do one more thing. I spent the next few days collecting everything I had. Every recording, every photo, every message. I printed transcripts. I made copies. I filled a binder 3 inches thick. I didn't care if it made me look obsessed. She started this. I was going to finish it. Then I did the one thing she never expected. I knocked on her door. She opened it slowly, like she wasn't sure who it was. I held up the thick binder. "This is every lie you told. Every family you tried to ruin. And you're done, Beverly." She stared at me without a word. Her hand trembled on the doorknob. But she didn't deny anything. "You listened to me," I said. "I gave all of this to the police, to the podcast, and to 3 lawyers. One of them suing you on behalf of the Santos family. The rest are backing us. You think people are afraid of you? They're not. Not anymore." She tried to speak, but I didn't let her. "And by the way," I added, "that private investigator you used? He's going back to court too. For breaking restraining orders and using illegal surveillance. You picked the wrong guy this time." I turned and walked away. That was the last time she spoke to me. The last time she ever left her porch. A week later, the restraining order was granted. She wasn't allowed within 200 feet of us or our house. The police also opened an investigation into her past reports. And once the podcast hit local news, more families came forward. Beverly was shunned from her church. Her friends stopped visiting. Her sign came down quietly in the middle of the night. The flower beds went unwatered. The blinds stayed shut. I heard she tried to sue the podcast for defamation. Didn't work. Too many people testified. Too many voices backing the truth. Ronald, the PI, got arrested 2 months later for tampering with evidence in an unrelated case. But I like to think the heat from this helped push it over the edge. As for us? It wasn't perfect. CPS still had us flagged for a while. We had to check in, answer follow-up questions. But eventually, they closed the file. Marked it all as malicious and false. Jenna and I went through a rough patch. Trust was hard. Safety was harder. But we stuck together. And Sophie? She's okay. Still a little scared of gardens. Still asks about the mean lady. But she sleeps through the night again. It took time. But we healed. And Beverly? Last I heard, her house went up for sale. No goodbye. No warning. Just a cold, empty porch and a patchy lawn. I never found out where she went. I don't care. She messed with the wrong family. She thought she could break us. But in the end, all she did was bury herself. And I made sure she'd never dig out.